Welcome back to the deep dive, where we kind of take a mountain of information and try to boil it down to the stuff you actually need.
Yeah, it's like a cheat sheet to staying informed, right?
Right. This week, we are saving you 15 hours and 4 minutes.
That's like a whole season of your favorite show.
It is a whole season. And before we get too far into it, this deep dive is brought to you by Podcast Notes.
Of course.
And if you are looking for even more, ways to dive in, you should check out Podcast Notes Premium.
Yeah, Premium gets you the whole archive of notes, the Premium Monday newsletter,
So many good things.
all sorts of extra goodies.
Okay, so this week we're covering like a pretty big range of stuff. We've got retirement planning, how to build a viral app, the history of the Nobel family, mindset cultivation,
Muscle building, content creation strategies,
modern survival in the digital age.
and even some tips on bootstrapping a business.
Yeah, get ready for some serious aha moments this week.
I think what's so cool about all these different topics is they're all about choices, It's financial choices for retirement, the apps you choose to use, the beliefs you choose to hold.
Oh, that's good. Okay, well, let's unpack that then. Starting with retirement planning, we've got some wisdom from Bill Sweet from the Ask the Compound podcast.
Yeah.
And he makes a really great point about the two extremes when it comes to money management.
What are those?
The overspenders and the oversavers.
Yeah, makes sense. It's interesting, though, how both groups are missing out on, contentment.
Yeah.
Overspenders are just always looking for that next thing to buy, and oversavers are paralyzed by the fear of spending anything.
And it seems like neither group is actually thinking about how they can use their money to live a fulfilling life.
Exactly. It's not about just accumulating wealth.
Right.
It's about using your money to actually achieve your goals.
Okay. Sweet also brought up this crazy statistic.
Oh, yeah. What's that?
Americans spend more on lottery tickets than all entertainment combined.
Wow.
That's crazy, right? We're literally banking on luck
Yeah.
instead of investing in, experiences and things that matter.
That's a good point. It really does make you wonder what our priorities are.
Yeah, and, renouncing U.S. citizenship.
Whoa.
It might seem extreme,
Yeah.
but for some people, it makes sense financially. Sweet called it the Hotel California scenario.
What do you mean?
You can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave.
Because even if you get out of the U.S. tax system, you still have to worry about capital gains acceleration.
Right, it's like a preemptive estate tax.
Right. Uncle Sam always finds a way to get his cut.
Yeah, and while we're talking about these, kind of complicated financial things, we should talk about annuities.
Yeah, sure.
Sweet said that any income you get from an annuity is considered ordinary income for taxes.
So it doesn't matter how you try to spin it, you're going to have to pay taxes on it.
Right. So let's talk about the bigger picture of retirement planning. What are some of the big risks we should be thinking about?
Sweet lays out 7 key risk factors, kind of like a checklist.
Okay, I like that.
The first one is longevity risk, which is how long are you going to live,
Makes sense. You don't want to outlive your savings.
especially with the cost of healthcare going up.
Right. And of course, there's inflation, which can really eat away at your savings over time.
And then there are things like interest rates, what the Federal Reserve is doing, and, the stock market.
Yeah, there's a lot to think about.
It can feel overwhelming.
So how do we make sure we can retire securely?
You need to understand the risks and make a plan for yourself.
Makes sense.
And, you should also challenge assumptions. For example, a lot of people think they need 70 to 80% of their pre-retirement income.
Yeah, to keep living the same lifestyle.
Right, but Goldman Sachs says most people are living on way less.
Really?
More than half are living on less than 50% of their pre-retirement income.
That's a big difference. Okay, so let's break down Roth IRAs and 401ks because those can be confusing.
Yeah, for sure.
The biggest difference is when you pay taxes.
Oh, okay. How so?
With a Roth IRA, you contribute after-tax dollars.
Okay.
So when you retire, you don't have to pay taxes on your withdrawals.
But there are some rules, right?
Yeah, your account needs to be open for at least 5 years, and you have to be 59 and a half to avoid penalties.
And what about a 401k?
For 401k, you put in pre-tax dollars, so it lowers your taxes now, but then you have to pay taxes when you take money out later.
So it's kind of like choosing between paying taxes now or paying them later.
Yeah. And then there's also something called the Rule of 55, which sounds like a secret code.
What is that?
Basically, it lets you take money out of your 401k without a penalty if you leave your job in or after the year you turn 55.
Oh, so it's a good option for people who retire early?
Yeah, but you still have to pay regular income tax on it.
Got it. So what's Sweet's biggest piece of advice when it comes to retirement accounts?
He says don't borrow against them.
Oh, really? Why not?
He says there are both legal and financial reasons why it's a bad idea.
Makes sense. It can be tempting to tap into that money, but it can cause problems later on.
Yeah. Sweet also talked about something a lot of people don't think about when it comes to retirement: boredom.
Ah, yeah. What do you do with all that free time?
Right. And it can be hard to replace the social connections you made at work.
That's a good point. So it's not just about money, it's about finding things to do and staying connected.
Okay, so we've covered the money side of things.
Hmm.
Now let's jump to the world of tech startups with Nikita Beer. He was on Lenny's podcast talking about how to build viral apps. And get this, his advice is to focus on teenagers.
Really? Why teenagers?
He says they're the best early adopters for an app.
Interesting. I guess they're more open to trying new things.
Yeah, and their social circles are always changing, and they're more likely to invite their friends to try the app.
They're definitely the trendsetters.
Right. Beer said that building apps for adults is harder because adults are set in their ways,
Makes sense.
and you need a lot of expensive advertising to get them to download something.
So teenagers are the key.
Yep. Beer also said something that really stuck with me. Every tap on a mobile app is a miracle for you as a product developer.
That's a good one. I guess he's saying that every interaction is important.
Yeah, you need to make the most of every tap because people won't have a lot of patience.
True that.
He also talked about the idea of latent demand.
What's that?
It's like an unmet need or desire that people have, even if they don't know it.
Oh, so you need to find a problem that people have and then solve it.
Exactly. Like, think about ride-sharing apps like Uber and Lyft.
Okay, yeah.
People needed a way to get around, but taxis were unreliable. So ride-sharing apps found that latent demand and filled it.
Interesting.
Beer also said that it takes about 3 exposures to convince someone to download an app,
Okay,
which is why you need to market it everywhere so people see it multiple times.
makes sense. You have to be top of mind.
So what's Beer's secret for getting feedback from users?
What is it?
Live chat customer support.
Oh, interesting.
He says it's so important to be able to talk to your users directly and get their feedback.
So you can constantly improve the app.
Right. And he says that as an app developer, you always have to be iterating because everything breaks.
Makes sense. You always have to be adapting and improving.
And he also talked about how being a product manager at a big tech company is not always what it's cracked up to be.
What do you mean?
He says that a lot of PMs spend their time dealing with bureaucracy instead of actually building new things.
Oh, wow.
And he said that often the only way to get ahead is to just copy someone else's product.
That's kind of depressing.
Yeah. Well, so what does Beer see as the biggest challenge for app developers going forward?
What's that?
He says it's the changes to contact permissions in iOS 18.
Oh, yeah. What's happening with that?
It's making it harder for apps to get new users.
Oh, that's tough.
So they need to find new ways to get people to use their apps.
Yeah, the game has changed.
Okay, well, that was a lot about tech. Let's switch gears completely and talk about the Nobel family.
Oh, wow. Yeah, this story is amazing.
It really is. This episode of Founders with David Senra did a great job of showing how much influence they had on industry in Russia.
Yeah, they're like the Rockefellers of the Rothschilds.
Right, especially in the oil industry.
It's interesting how they competed with those other big families.
And what's crazy is how they survived the Bolshevik Revolution. Emmanuel Nobel was one of the richest men in Russia, and he had to flee the country disguised as a peasant.
Wow, talk about resilience.
They were really good at adapting and overcoming challenges, and they weren't afraid to take risks either.
Like what?
Robert Nobel invested in an oil refinery, even though his brother Ludwig told him it was a bad idea.
Was he right?
It turned out to be a great investment.
Oh, wow. So it's important to trust your gut sometimes.
Yeah. Of course, we can't forget Alfred Nobel, the inventor of dynamite.
Right. He's a brilliant guy.
Yeah, he was a scientist, an engineer,
Yeah.
and a businessman. And his legacy lives on through the Nobel Prize.
Right, which is amazing.
So from oil to high finance, the Nobels built a huge empire. But let's not forget about all the entrepreneurs who were building their businesses from scratch.
Right, the everyday people.
Exactly. And speaking of that, Jesse Pujji was on the My First Million podcast talking about how to bootstrap a billion-dollar business.
Oh, wow. That's a great topic.
And he had some interesting strategies. Like, he's really good at making $50,000 seem cheap.
How does he do that?
He compares his prices to companies like McKinsey, who charge way more.
Oh, that's smart. It makes his services look like a bargain.
Exactly. And he focuses on a very specific type of client,
Who's that?
people in private equity and hedge funds. He calls them super rational and urgency-driven.
So they just want results.
Right. So
Yeah.
what are Pujji's 2 keys to success when it comes to bootstrapping?
I'm listening.
Number 1 is to leverage specialized knowledge. Find something you're really good at and offer that as a service.
So become an expert in your niche.
Right. And number 2 is to focus on the highest paying customers.
Don't waste time on the small fit.
Exactly. Go for the big clients who are willing to pay for your expertise.
Makes sense. So find something you're good at and find the people who will pay the most for it.
Yeah, it's a powerful combination. Okay, so we've talked about finance and entrepreneurship. Now let's talk about something a little different. Mindset and well-being.
Yeah, that's important too. You can't be successful if you're not in the right headspace.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Our mindset really does shape how we experience the world, and it's something we can actually work on and change.
Right. Speaking of mindset, this week we learned about cynicism from Dr. Jamil Zaki.
Oh, yeah, he was on the Huberman Lab podcast.
Yeah, with Andrew Huberman.
Yeah.
And he defined cynicism as this belief that people are just inherently untrustworthy.
Interesting.
Like no matter what they do, you just don't trust them.
It's like a deep negativity.
Yeah, and he actually made a distinction between cynicism and skepticism.
Oh, yeah, a lot of people use those words interchangeably.
Right. But they're not the same thing, are they?
Not at all. Skepticism is healthy. It's about questioning things and looking for evidence.
Right.
But cynicism is like closing yourself off. You've already made up your mind and nothing can change it.
So skepticism is like critical thinking.
Yeah.
And cynicism is more like just being negative.
Exactly. And Zaki said that cynics actually have shorter lifespans. Yeah, all that stress and negativity takes a toll on your body.
So maybe there's something to this whole positive thinking thing.
Yeah, it's not just about feeling good, it's about your health.
Okay, and Zaki said that social media is a big driver of cynicism.
That makes sense. It's like a negativity machine.
Yeah, the algorithms are designed to keep you engaged, and outrage and negativity get more clicks.
So we're constantly being bombarded with the worst of humanity.
It's like a distorted reality.
Yeah, so how do we break free from that and start thinking more positively?
Well, Zaki suggests something called social savoring.
What's that?
It's about intentionally focusing on the good things in your interactions with people.
So like looking for the silver lining.
Right. And that actually connects with what Gurwinder Bogle had to say about surviving in the digital age.
Oh, yeah, he was on the Infinite Loops podcast.
Yeah, with Jim O'Shaughnessy.
Yeah.
And he did not hold back. He called social media a town square for village idiots.
Wow. Okay, that's harsh, but kind of true.
Yeah, sometimes it feels like the loudest and craziest voices are the ones that get the most attention.
That's Bogle's point. He says our brains aren't equipped to deal with all the information we get online. We're not used to this level of stimulation.
Right. It's like we're trying to drink from a fire hose.
And he had this great analogy for how hard it is to change our beliefs.
Oh, yeah. What's that?
He said it's like bricks in masonry.
Yeah.
Each brick is supporting the others.
Okay. I see where he's going with this.
So if you want to change one belief, you have to take apart the whole structure.
That's a really good way to put it.
Bogle is also a big believer in taking responsibility for your own life.
Yeah, he says that playing the victim is disempowering.
It's easy to blame other people or systems, but ultimately you're in control of your own choices.
And he quoted Eric Hoffer.
Oh, yeah, who said that every great cause eventually becomes a racket.
Yeah. He was talking about how movements can lose their way.
It's like they start with good intentions, but then it becomes more about power.
So we have to be careful about who we follow and what we support.
Yeah. Be discerning. He also talked about the woke mind virus.
Oh, yeah.
Which he sees as this oversimplified view of the world.
Yeah. It's like everything is black and white.
And he thinks that this kind of thinking is dangerous because it leads to intolerance.
It's a reminder that even good ideas can be taken too far.
And Bogle made this prediction about the future.
Oh, yeah. What was that?
He said that humanity is splitting into two groups, those who control technology and those who are controlled by it.
Oh, wow. That's kind of scary.
It is. It makes you think about how much power technology has over us.
Are we using it or is it using us?
Right. And Bogle suggested a way to think about the choices we make in life.
What is it?
Ask yourself, what's the long-term effect of playing this game?
Meaning?
Like, what are the consequences of your actions? Are they leading you where you want to go?
I like that. Okay, so speaking of choices and consequences, we also have this deep dive into RFK Jr.'s interview on the Tucker Carlson show.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that was a controversial one.
Yeah, he talked about censorship, the Democratic Party, and the power of big tech.
He's not afraid to speak his mind.
He said that censorship is always the first step towards totalitarianism.
It's a strong statement, but it makes you think.
Yeah. He's a big advocate for free speech, even when it's unpopular.
So what did he have to say about the Democratic Party?
He basically said that they've become elitist and out of touch with regular people.
Interesting.
He thinks they're more interested in power than in helping people.
And he was also worried about the loss of free speech in Europe.
Yeah, he sees it as a warning sign for what could happen here.
It's like a slippery slope.
And he made some serious accusations about the Biden administration.
Oh, yeah. What were those?
He said that they're pressuring social media companies to censor people.
Oh, wow.
And he even said that they created a portal so government agencies can access people's data.
That's concerning.
Yeah, if that's true. It's a big violation of privacy.
He also called out CISA.
Yeah, he called them the center of the censorship industrial complex.
So he thinks they're behind all this censorship.
Yeah, and he said that the White House was threatening Facebook.
Really? What were they threatening them with?
He said they were going to take away Facebook's Section 230 immunity.
Oh, wow. That's a big deal. What is Section 230 anyway?
It's this law that protects internet platforms from being sued for what users post.
Oh, I see.
But some people think it gives tech companies too much power.
Yeah. It's a tough issue.
It is. And RFK Jr. also talked about the increase in autism rates.
Oh, yeah. That's been a big topic lately.
He thinks it's linked to environmental factors.
Interesting. It's definitely something that needs more research.
Yeah. And he ended the interview with this really powerful statement about nature.
What did he say?
He said that protecting nature is important because it connects us to something bigger than ourselves.
It's like a spiritual connection.
Yeah. Okay, so that was pretty heavy stuff. Let's switch gears again and talk about content creation. Ben Thompson was on the Invest Like the Best podcast.
Oh, yeah? I like his blog.
Me too.
Hmm.
And he was talking about how he built his writing empire.
I'm all ears.
Well, he said that the most important thing is to focus on your readers.
Like give them something valuable.
Right. He wants people to finish his articles and feel like they learned something.
That's a good goal.
He also talked about his write-in machine framework.
Oh, yeah. What is that?
It's his process for creating content.
Okay. So how does it work?
First, you develop a worldview, which
Well-
is like your lens for seeing the world.
Okay.
Then you take in new information and filter it through that lens.
I see. And the output is your writing.
Right. He also believes that writing is a good way to think.
Like it helps you clarify your ideas.
Yeah. And he emphasized how important it is to grab the reader's attention early on.
Yeah, you got to hook them with that first article.
And the second one is even more important.
Why?
Because if they don't like that second article, they're not going to come back.
That's true. You have to keep them coming back for more.
And he also pays a lot of attention to the visual side of his blog. He has a unique name, a custom font, and he even uses hand drawings.
It's all about branding.
Yeah, he wants to create a memorable experience for his readers.
That's smart. And he talked about the importance of a good conclusion.
Right. He likes to tie the conclusion back to the introduction.
So it feels like a complete thought.
Yeah, brings it all together. Okay, last but not least, let's talk about building muscle and strength with Dr. Layne Norton.
Oh, yeah. He was on the Iron Age podcast.
Right. And he went straight to the good stuff. He talked about his Mount Rushmore of supplements:
Okay, I'm listening.
creatine monohydrate, caffeine, and whey protein.
The classics.
Yeah. He said those three are backed by tons of research.
So no need to waste money on the fancy new stuff.
Right. Stick with what works.
Yeah.
And he debunked some myths about creatine,
Like what?
like the one about it causing hair loss.
Oh, yeah, I've heard that one.
He said it's totally safe and it can even improve your cognitive function and mood.
Interesting. So what other supplements does he recommend?
Rhodiola rosea, ashwagandha, beta-alanine, citrulline, fish oil, melatonin, and glucosamine.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah. But he said it's important to do your research and figure out what works best for you.
Don't just take something because someone else is taking it.
Right. Okay, so let's talk about building strength. What are the key things we need to focus on?
Dr. Norton said there are three main factors: mechanical tension, the number of hard sets, and training muscles at long lengths under tension.
Okay, break that down for me.
Mechanical tension is the force your muscles exert when you lift weights.
Got it.
The number of hard sets are the sets you do close to failure.
Okay.
And training muscles at long lengths means using a full range of motion.
So it's not just about lifting heavy, it's about how you lift.
Exactly. And he also talked about the things that increase your risk of injury.
Oh yeah, that's important.
He said the big three are increasing your training load too quickly, psychological stress, and not getting enough sleep.
So it's about taking care of your whole self.
Exactly. Mind, body, and spirit.
And he said it's never too late to start strength training.
So no excuses.
No excuses. Okay, what about protein? How much do we need?
He recommends about 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight.
That's a lot of protein.
It is. But if you're trying to lose weight, you might need even more.
Really? Why?
It helps you preserve muscle mass while you're losing fat.
Oh, that makes sense. And what about endurance athletes?
They need more carbs and fat to fuel their workouts, so their protein needs might be a little lower.
So it really depends on your goals.
Yeah, find what works for you. And he talked about artificial sweeteners.
Yeah, oh yeah. Are those bad for you?
Actually, he said there's research that suggests they might help with weight loss.
Really? I thought they were supposed to make you gain weight.
Well, it's still important to be mindful of how much you consume.
And he also talked about the carnivore diet.
Oh, wow, that's a crazy one.
Yeah, the all-meat diet. He said it can be helpful for figuring out food sensitivities, but it's not sustainable in the long term.
Yeah, you need fiber and nutrients from plants.
Right. And lastly, he talked about the difference between training for strength versus training for muscle mass.
Oh, yeah, what's the difference?
Strength is about how much force you can generate, and muscle mass is about the size of your muscles.
So how do you train for each one?
For strength, you need to lift heavy weights for fewer reps.
Okay.
And for muscle mass, you need to do more reps with lighter weights.
So it's all about finding the right balance.
Yep. This has been a jam-packed deep dive into the world of fitness.
I know, right? We covered so much.
It's amazing how much you can learn from podcasts.
It really is.
Wow, we really went deep this week, didn't we?
Yeah, from retirement planning to viral apps to even like lifting weights.
I mean, it's pretty amazing how much we packed in.
And let's not forget all the philosophical stuff too, you know?
Right. Mindset, personal responsibility, free speech.
It's all connected in a way.
Yeah, it is. Like,
Yeah.
the more we learn, the better choices we can make.
And that leads to a more fulfilling life, right?
Right. And you know what else is fulfilling? All that time we saved you this week.
How much was it again?
15 hours and 4 minutes.
Wow, that's like a mini vacation.
It is. You could read a book, start a new hobby, hang out with friends and family.
So many possibilities.
And if you want to keep the learning going, don't forget, this deep dive is brought to you by Podcast Notes.
Of course.
And if you really want to level up your knowledge game, you got to check out Podcast Notes Premium.
Yeah, Premium gives you access to all the show notes, the Premium Monday newsletter.
It's like a treasure trove of information.
So as we wrap things up, I want to leave you with a question.
Okay, I'm listening.
Remember what Gurwinder Bogle said about asking what game you're playing in life?
Yeah.
So I'm asking you, what games are you playing? Are they leading you in the right direction?
Are you building the life you want?
It's a good question to think about.
It is. It's a reminder that we have the power to choose our own path.
So keep learning, keep exploring, and keep asking those tough questions.
This is The Deep Dive, signing off.